Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, a show that is always endeavoring to bring you interesting viewpoints and stories from far away, internationally, across Canada, British Columbia, and right here in our island home. I'm Robin Adair, and speaking from his Saanich home, his palatial Saanich home on South Tulip, or that's North Tulip, to those who really care about their geography in Saanich, is the Croatian sensation himself, John Jurisic. And John,
yes,
big news coming out of Saanich. Big news.
This fascinating infrastructure dialogue is one that's been chatted amongst us Saanich folk for quite some time.
Well, they're talking about finally doing something about Shelburne, which I would suggest is one of the busiest streets in all of Greater Victoria. And it looks largely the same as it did when I first came to live in Victoria when I was going to universities in the 70s. In the 70s, it hasn't changed in 40 years yet. There's so many more people, so much more usage. It's got to happen.
There's been zero change to Shelburne. I lived in that area. Certainly if you have a wish to end your life through some kind of suicide or something, just ride your bike on Shelburne, and then you'll be taken care of quickly. That place is so dangerous for anything other than the cars and even large trucks now. You can't really. Anyway, this whole Saanich infrastructure issue, Robin, has been chatted amongst folks for quite some time. And Gordon Head gets their sidewalks looked after. The university area gets their sidewalks looked after. Broadmead gets their roads looked. But us guys in Saanich East, no, man, I still walk literally on the road. Yeah, we need someone to talk about this in good old Saanich.
And of course, it's not just Saanich, it's a big development everywhere. Downtown Victoria has so much more development, and the roads just keep getting narrower and narrower. Over in Vic West, Songhees, huge development. And where's the infrastructure to support it? In the western communities, you've got little Latoria Street backing massive developments in Colwood and Langford, a single lane little highway that just doesn't do the trick. They've got to get more infrastructure for Victoria as it grows. And we'll talk more about that in, shows upcoming, and looking forward to that. But John, really, there's a lot of things also happening on the national front that I find very troubling. And one of them, I have to say, is around our prime minister. The fact that Justin Trudeau, and this isn't the big issue, he's going on a holiday, John. It's the fact that Justin Trudeau is saying he needs to have some me time. And it seems to me that it's always around me time for Justin Trudeau.
Rob, it's no secret. I've been a supporter of his over time. But I can't support anyone, let alone a prime minister, who amongst these really crazy times, I think these are unprecedentedly crazy times, says, I need me time. I need me time. You need me time. My dog needs me time. Don't tell me, Prime Minister of Canada, that you need me time. Of course he has to go on a holiday with his family. Don't tell us that you need it, because I need it more than he does. I just hope the public, and potentially some Middle Eastern benefactor, is not paying for it. Justin was such a bright ray of hope. I thought so in 2015. There was freshness. There was new ideas. There was a
happy ways.
There was a casualness about him. His apparently his approval rating is down around 10%. Gee, they thought Biden's at 38 was low. 10% is pretty pathetic. I really wonder if there's any chance for rebounding or what's going to happen to Mr. Me Time now.
Yeah, I think it's around 10% for people who strongly support him. So he has some base of support still. Politics is a long game, but right now, people I think are feeling very hurt by the mandates and the pandemic, and it's one of those every man for himself kind of situations. My biggest problem, though, with the prime minister at this moment is some of the stuff that he has been recently pulling in the Ukraine, John. And you may recall 3 months ago, He met with President Zelensky in Kyiv and announced that Canada was reopening its embassy, a sign of support for that war-torn country. He even stood out in front of the embassy, raised the flag with Ministers Friedland and Jolie. And 3 months later, embassy's still closed. Nothing's going on at the embassy. It was a photo op. And that's all it was a photo op. And I think that is something that does not serve Justin Trudeau. If he can't actually deliver, he shouldn't have gone to that degree of activity. He should have said, we'd like to bring it back, not gone out there and raised a flag.
Robin, totally. I couldn't agree more. I am not in favor of individuals who use smoke and mirrors to demonstrate their point. Even if I disagree with you, tell me what you're going to do and follow up with it. None of this kind of maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And 3 or 4 months later, you don't know what's happening. People don't forget empty promises. I think that's going to come back to hurt Prime Minister Trudeau. So before we move on now to talk about the next Premier of BC, it might be interesting to read a bit of viewer mail, of which we're getting increasingly more and more. Like hundreds of people are yakking about these shows. We have so much on so many topics, Robin. A lot of it is still on vaccinations and mandates. We've been very clear on our program that you and I support getting COVID shots. We support the health protocols. But some of our viewers hold very different views. For example, Spirit Pepper writes, those who want endless needles and masks, go for it. Knock yourselves out. But leave the rest of us hell alone.
And, we've also heard, and some of these people have very interesting names. I can't believe that they're legal names. But anyway, Custom Chameleon writes, dude, the only people I know getting sick are jabbed. I got it and have natural immunity. Nothing in 2 years plus, and everyone else is sick all the time. Truth.
We pick these out. I laugh at them when I send them to each other, and then I continue to laugh as you read them. Della writes, some people just want to pay their bills. No more lockdowns. Canada and Canadians cannot afford lockdowns.
Fair enough. And we're gonna have more viewer mail coming up in a few minutes. I think that we've had so many letters and emails and directives sent our way by various platforms. We'd like to be able to share a few more, but
right.
Let's first now look at what's going on in the provincial scene with the emergence of David Eby, who has all but tied up the leadership of the NDP. John Horgan, of course, is stepping aside, mainly for health reasons. And David Eby has long been rumored to want the job, and it looks like he's going to get it. So you can really get a feel for his optimism as you hear him addressing the faithful at a recent rally.
48 MLAs in our caucus who are supporting me here tonight. 48 MLAs. Thank you, colleagues. So last and certainly not least, a lot of you in this room have reached out to me, to our family. Many of you have supported me for a long time in this job. There are many people across the province who are watching, who are supporters. There are people here tonight in spirit, electronically, in person. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I couldn't have done this without you to get to this point.
And here to talk more about David Eby and how he may perform as the next Premier of British Columbia is veteran consultant Brad Zubyk. And I've known Brad Zubyk a long time. He used to be a consultant with Mike Harcourt back in the 1990s. And I was at the legislature then as a reporter and got to know Brad then. Since that time, he's worked with all kinds of political parties of different stripes, both in the provincial scene, the federal scene, and at the moment he's working on a civic election campaign. And Brad Zubyk certainly is never afraid to share his ideas. Let's zoom him in. Now joining us in the Victoria Rumble Room, once again, it's been a while, is Brad Zubyk, political consultant par excellence. And Brad, it's great to have you back on the program.
Great to be here. A lot of fun last time.
It was. And, David Eby has all been but anointed as the leader of the NDP. He indeed will be the next Premier of the British Columbia government. and the province of BC. You've known David Eby for a long time. What's your measure of the man and his performance to date?
Well, I mean, David is a political animal for sure. He's sort of effectively reinvented himself in this ministerial role from his young sort of activist days, I guess. But I don't think it's going to be easy. I mean, he's got three things he's got to get right. One is he's got to replace John Horgan, who is, walks on water, according to, a lot of people in this province. Number two, John Horgan has left him with an absolute shit sandwich of issues. I mean, a million British Columbians without family doctors, emergency rooms closed on the weekend throughout the province, people dying in overcrowded emergency rooms or dying because the emergency room was closed. Then you've got an opioid overdose. You have continued sort of affordability issues. I mean, there's a lot of issues out there that he's going to have to clean up. On the housing front, arguably some of his own making. And then I think the third thing he faces is, well, the province loved John Horgan or respected him for the most part. The party activists didn't necessarily. So as we saw from Bowen Ma soon after David Eby announced, she said, I want a leader who's going to pay serious attention to the environment. There's others saying we need to do more social policy. So in a sense, he's caught between keeping Horgan's sort of moderate image, because let's be honest, John Horgan covered up a lot of that activism in the party. And Eby's got to figure out how to sort of square that circle, or walk that line between trying to continue what Horgan did image-wise with keeping the activists under control, which is obviously an issue with the NDP.
Brad, great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Last week on the show, we were talking, as you've just affirmed, how successful John Horgan has been over the last 5 years, at least in the popularity rankings, and how he's remained one of the most popular premiers in the country. Aside from the issues, as you've just identified, those will clearly be big shoes to fill. One of the appeals of John, as is with Pierre Poilievre, is this kind of folksiness, this ability to just, we're in a coffee shop, you feel a real affinity to these people. How different is Dave Eby's style? How will it be different when he becomes premier, as we assume that'll be a slam dunk?
Well, he won't like me for this. John Horgan is very natural in his own skin, right? I mean, he is who he is, and I think that authenticity is picked up by the public, right? So they can forgive sins, he can apologize and get away with it. I think David Eby is more awkward as a political player, for lack of a better word, right? I mean, part of it is just the physical. He's very tall. He stands out in the crowd. He's personable for sure, but he doesn't have that natural, I am who I am sort of thing. So it's going to be challenging. On the other hand, I mean, he surprised me. I thought when he got elected MLA, I mean, I knew him when he was getting defeated for Vision Vancouver council nominations, right? And I thought, okay, how's he going to do as an MLA? And part of the reason he got defeated at Vision was he was seen as too radical. Those were his days of, filming the police and being a social activist. So he's made this transition that surprised me, and I give him credit for it. I think his record in government has been mixed. I think the ICBC stuff went relatively smoothly. People tend to like getting checks. I think the housing front has certainly not been a home run, and I think the organized crime money laundering thing is, seen by many as somewhat of a waste of money and anticlimactic, given the, in a sort of big political circus, given the amount of attention and money that went into it to basically have the conclusions come out that really nothing to see here.
It seems to me in some ways this NDP government has been able to get a buy on some of these more difficult issues and problems they're now dealing with because of COVID. It was basically the Bonnie Henry, Adrian Dick show for what, a year and a half before suddenly things calmed down. And then magically we're hearing about housing, and we're hearing about the BC Museum and all these things that are creating problems. Suddenly, in a way, you feel that John Horgan's getting out at the right time.
Well, yeah, and I mean, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that was part of his thinking as well. But I mean, one thing they share with the Trudeau government is, I call the Trudeau government I don't want to take too big a veer here, but I call them a Potemkin government. If you're familiar with the Potemkin village,
Yes.
Where, right, you know, the
facades, as was it?
The facade, and there's seldom as anything behind them in terms of actual policy. You don't forget that the NDP, Horgan ran on affordability, on rental subsidies, right, and improving healthcare. Well, how's that all gone? You know, but I mean, you know, we've got this tendency, I think, in Canadian politics these days to where things become more political than actual, you know, political and performative, as opposed to actually delivering something on the back end. You know, because Lord help us if this is what fixing healthcare looks like, right? Like,
Well, David Eby's wife is a doctor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she graduated from medical school. Adrian Dix has been in there the whole time, and for many years he was the health critic. Do you think with a new leader we could see a change of the guard in terms of some of these key ministerial portfolios?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think there's going to be a ministerial change. I suspect there'll be a senior staff change. I think David Eby has got his work cut out for him. I mean, and then you add that to the fact that you know, the opposition, I think, for the first time, you know, since they lost the election, has at least got some, you know, whatever you think of Kevin Falcon, I would call his performance sort of workmanlike up to this point, right? But he's given them focus. He's given them a little bit of message discipline. I think you're going to see a lot of old faces leave and new faces run. I think he realizes the importance of that. You know, so, you know, the combination of Horgan leaving and leaving that cover, that sort of Teflon cover off the government, activists wanting a more active government and demanding it, really, a whole basket of issues with no easy answers, and then a more disciplined opposition. I think it's pointing to a very competitive election next time.
Brad is such an interesting guy. I just love hearing his viewpoints. We'll certainly get him back to talk about the federal scene in the fall. In the meantime, we ran an earlier clip of Brad Zubyk this week-ish and have already had some feedback. Regarding Mr. Zubyk, Judy writes, BC Liberal operatives honing talking points as usual. They're so jealous that the NDP has so many young, bright, accomplished options for leader. All they have are crooks and liars, and they should just stop talking. Well, thank you. Thank you, Judy.
We also have a comment in regards to comments from Michael Prince. We had Dr. Michael Prince from UVic on talking about John Horgan retiring and the fact that he has very strong personal opinion numbers still in recent polling. And this maybe won't be a big surprise. There's lots of people out there, lots of our viewers don't love pollsters. And Belinda writes, BC is full of dumbed down, bleeding hearts. Of course, the sympathy vote will give Horgan the rating. They so easily forget $1 billion for a museum. Never mind the thousands of people still waiting for their first doctor or specialist appointment. Gross.
And David writes, history repeats itself, so the NDP count on a new crop of voters who believe business is the enemy, profit is poison, rich are villains. We've seen this play out in BC 3 times, but some never learned that this turns into a shite show. Here we go again. Horgan is a political disaster.
And finally, we very recently had Jordan Sturdy, the opposition ferry critic, on the program talking about the CEO at Ferries being fired by board chair Joy McPhail. and the government taking more direct control of BC Ferries. And Jamie writes, the reality is, even if the BC Ferries was a private-public partnership, the government still would oversee operations. Horgan and his administration were a total train wreck with BC Ferries. And we certainly thank you for writing us, and lots of people have written. We encourage you, as one of our beloved viewers, to check in with our various sites. You can see lots of comments written in, lots of people with viewpoints of the many topics that we bring every week on the Rumble Room. And John, maybe you'd like to talk about how people can dip their toes on the various sites where the Rumble Room lives. They can read these viewer mail comments. They can also sign up to join the Rumble Room family.
The Rumble Room family, the buffet of social media sites that we are that we live on. The key one, the most popular one, where we get most of these comments, is obviously on Facebook. We also have a Twitter site, and we have a YouTube site where all of these interviews and dialogue are listed. We also have an Instagram site and a TikTok site, and a unique place where people can post their events, their viewpoints, all kinds of things on a Facebook News and Views group site. So that's it for this program. I remain your faithful servant, Robin Adair, as the mayor of North Julep. I am Johnny Jurisic, the Croatian sensation.
Absolutely, John. I thought for a moment there, I thought you were Robin Adair, and I was getting kind of excited. I thought, my goodness me, I've got a double on the show.
Yeah,
it's just great, double trouble. And so on that happy note, I say double trouble and rumble on.